Welcome to Latin at Home. I am Kathleen, your host. In this series, we will be using verses from the Mass readings to practice Latin. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me here at Latin at Home. This week is the seventh Sunday after Pentecost, and the Gospel reading this week is from Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 to 21. We are actually going to do two verses this week. We normally do one. So we're going to do 20 and 21. And it reads as follows. Igitur ex fructibus eorum cognoscetis eos. Non omnis qui dicit mihi Domine Domine intrabit in regnum celorum. Sed quid facet voluntatem Patris mei, qui in celis est, ipse intrabit in regnum celorum. So this one's a little longer than what we normally do. We're going to break it down into 3 slides. Verse 20 is just this one sentence, so let's tackle this one first. I like to get all my conjunctions out of the way early. So igitur means therefore. We usually find our subject and verb next, but this prepositional phrase right here, it's actually going to be helpful to do this one first. So ex we've seen before. We think of the word exit. It means from or out of. Can translate as other things, but we're just going to stick with that for now. So from eorum is there. And for anyone who knows any prayers in Latin, you might recognize fructibus from Et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. That is from the Hail Mary, and it means, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. So yes, fructibus is just in a different case. This is in the ablative because it's part of this prepositional phrase with ex. So therefore, from their fruits. And now we'll find our subject and verb. So the next word, cognoscetis, is our verb, and it ends in tis, so we know this subject is you plural. And let's see if we can figure out what this word means without having to look it up. So that's the word we're dealing with. If I threw this re in front of it, does that help? Does that look familiar with any English words? It is in fact recognize. It can also translate as know. I'm just going to go with recognize. I like sticking with derivatives to help us remember words. So you plural will recognize, and eos, os has this accusative ending because it is our direct object, and eos is a pronoun, means them. So that's verse 20. Therefore, from their fruits, you will recognize them. Great, let's go on to verse 21, which is a little longer, a little more complex. Non omnis qui dicit mihi Domine Domine. So non means not, common word. We've seen omnis before. Omnis in the singular means each or every. In the plural, it means all. I think last time we used each, so why don't we go with every this time? And it's an adjective that's not matching anything, so we can kind of throw in an implied noun. So every man, you could say every one. I think in the last video where we saw this, we said each man. So not every man, and now we have qui dicit mihi. This is a relative clause. So qui means who. Dicit is our verb. So I actually want to talk about this verb because this is a really common verb, and it has a lot of English derivatives. So let's just look at some of those to help us remember it. First, I want to show you the 4 principal parts of this verb. Don't worry about what that means. I'm just showing them to you because it's from this 4th part where we get a lot of our English derivatives. So I just wanted to show you that so you could see the T in there. So that's where we get the word diction and dictate and dictator, and there are a lot of others. And this means to say or to tell. So going back to our slide, who, and now it ends in a T because who was the subject, who says, mihi we've seen, and that is another pronoun. This is in the dative, to me. So not every man who says to me. We've discussed the word dominus before. We've never seen it in this form where it ends in an E. This is in the vocative because you're talking to the Lord. So you're saying, Lord, Lord. Not every man who says to me, Lord, Lord, intrabit in regnum celorum. Intrabit is our verb. It ends in a T because every man was our subject. Intrabit means enter, and this is in the future tense. So will enter. And finally, we have this prepositional phrase, in regnum celorum. In means into. Regnum is a kingdom. It's in the accusative. So remember, we have to insert some kind of article. So we're going to say the kingdom. And then celorum. Orum is a genitive ending. So with the genitive case, we need to insert we almost always need to insert the preposition of, and that's of heaven. If you know your endings, orum is a genitive plural. However, this word often in English just gets translated into the singular. So not every man who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. Sed qui facet voluntatem patris mei. Sed is but, and we just saw qui on the previous page. That's who. There's sometimes this will happen where it's sort of acting as a subject. So you'll see like he who. You don't have to say that. I'm just throwing it in there to show you. Facet, very common verb, ends in T because he was the subject. And that's to do or to make. So, but he who does. Voluntatem, this is in the accusative because it's the direct object. And you can see the word voluntary in there. This word means the will. And then patris mei, genitive. Genitive is translated with of. So this is of my Father in the genitive. But he who does the will of my Father. Now we have a relative clause describing my Father, qui in celis est. So qui, third time that we're seeing it in this video. So who. Est, the all-important verb esse. We got to know this word. It ends in a T because who is the subject. That's just present tense is. And then we have this prepositional phrase in celis. Now we just saw in on the previous slide and we translated it as into. This time we're going to translate it as in. So very quickly, if you're wondering why that is, on the previous slide, we saw it here, and that's because it was followed by the accusative case. So when in is followed by the accusative, it's going to translate as into. And when in is followed by the ablative, it's going to translate as in or on. So here on this one, we have an ablative ending. So we're going to translate it as in. So who is in, and we just saw this word before, heaven. And now we have our final clause. Ipse means he. Intrabit, we saw on the previous slide. Again, he's the subject, so we've got our T ending, still in the future tense, will enter. And then this is the same prepositional phrase that we just saw on the previous slide, in regnum caelorum, into the kingdom of heaven. So let me just clear this out of the way so I can get our translation. But he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he will enter into the kingdom of heaven. So great job on that. Let me know if you have any questions about what we did in the comments, any vocabulary, grammar, anything. So there's the Vulgate, there's the translation we just worked through together. And now here is the official translation. Wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. Not every one that saith to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doth the will of my Father who is in heaven, he shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. So thanks for joining me for this lesson. We'll get to our visual in just a moment. I just want to say, come back and join me again next week. I'll be doing these every Sunday. And for some feast days, let me know of other videos that you would like to see. And again, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. So our final slide is always just a visual. So this is, by their fruits you will know them. I always like to take a moment after I read. I'm a very visual person, so I like to have some kind of picture to just let those words sink in. Thanks again for joining me at Latin at Home. Have a wonderful 7th Sunday after Pentecost.